Okay, this is my third video that I'm recording for the day, and this one's going to be a little bit longer, so excuse me if I'm a little bit more informal. But welcome back to the Play by Play Podcast YouTube channel, where on today's video, we are going to be taking a look at what the heck happened within this first round, this wildcard round of the NFL playoffs, and doing a little bit of a preview of this upcoming divisional round and seeing what teams realistically still have a chance to go ahead and make it to the Super Bowl. But before we start this very, very long episode, I want to encourage you guys to go down below, leave a like on this video, as well as subscribe to the channel, leaving a comment and sharing with your friends. And if you haven't already, go ahead and follow us on all social medias, that being TikTok, Instagram, and Twitter. All of those apps are going to be down below. We're on all of those social medias. You will get to see my latest reactions to breaking news within the NBA, the NFL, and combat sports, and you will never miss for whenever the podcast decides to upload an episode. Without further ado, guys, let's go ahead and hop right into this NFL Wild Card weekend, which was an absolutely insane weekend. This was, in my opinion, hyped up to be one of the most unpredictable, most fun playoff sequences that we've had in a very, very long time, and I don't think that it disappointed at all. Really, if you look at it, 2, 3, 4, 5 and 6 of the games, you could say, were mad competitive. And even the last two that we got, both Sunday night and last night, between the Texans and the Steelers and the Chargers and the Patriots, I don't think that the scoreboard realistically illustrates what happened within each of those matchups. But we're going to go through them one by one, starting on Saturday, where we had nearly the upset of the year with the Carolina Panthers losing to the Los Angeles Rams 34-31. And here, I'm just going to say this for everybody in the room to hear, whether you're in the front, the back, whether you don't even want to hear what I have to say, but I'm just going to say it. I don't, and I am going to say this again, I do not want to hear any more slander on Bryce Young and the Carolina Panthers anymore. Yes, I understand that they were 8-9, a losing record getting into the playoffs. Yes, I understand that they've had struggles in the past. Yes, I understand that barely, a year ago, Bryce Young was getting benched for Andy Dalton, and that was a video that I actually made talking about Bryce Young. But I have always been a believer and a fan of Bryce Young, and what he did Saturday against a pretty good Rams team was good. 21 for 40, 264 yards through the air, 1 touchdown, 1 interception. Yes, he made mistakes, but also went drive for drive, blow for blow against Matthew Stafford, who is a perennial MVP candidate this year. Bryce played amazing, and if it wasn't for a couple of drop passes by some Carolina Panthers receivers, they would have gone out and won this game. And so on the other side of the coin, if you're the LA Rams, you should be very, very concerned. Not necessarily about your offense, because Stafford and especially Puka Nacua were pretty much firing on all cylinders. But the fact that this defense gave up 31 points to this Carolina Panthers team, who, as great as they played, don't have a ton of major weapons outside of, Bryce and Tedero McMillan and whatnot, you should be worried going forward, especially playing against some explosive offenses going forward, like the Seattle Seahawks, and now in this following round in the Chicago Bears. You need to figure something out, especially at that second cornerback spot. That has been a massive weakness for them moving forward. You need to find out some type of way to get more and more pressure on the quarterback and get him uncomfortable, especially Caleb Williams, who, loves to make explosive plays outside of the pocket. Only sacking Bryce Young 2 times, that is not going to do it. The offense is, bona fide. It is established. They are going to do well. But at some point, you need to be able to get a stop. And the fact that you didn't even realistically get a stop, it was more the Carolina Panthers dropping a pass and Jimmy Horn Jr., very, very heartbreaking for him. He needs to keep his head up and keep this going. But that is something that needs to be very, very concerning for the Rams going forward. And they're still going to be one of the favorites going forward because of the experience that they have with their personnel, because of the experience that they have coaching-wise, and Sean McVay being just an absolutely offensive guru. But if they don't clean things up quick, going up against more talented offenses, there's the potential that they could give up, 30 plus 40 points within this next round or so. And I'm not even joking about that because, and I'm going to sort of move all around here, depending on our matchups. The following matchup on Saturday illustrated who their opponent was going to be. The Chicago Bears beat the Green Bay Packers by 4 points. And again, for the Bears, this was not the way that they probably anticipated winning this game. And games against the Packers for them have always been difficult, especially this season. But they got off to a little bit of a slow start. And that's kind of what I anticipated, just because there was going to be a lot of adrenaline, a lot of energy within Soldier Field, and you have a lot of inexperience on this Bears roster, especially on the offensive side. Ben Johnson, rookie head coach. Caleb Williams, it's only being his second year, first time in the playoffs. Roma Dunze, first time within the playoffs. DJ Moore, I believe only the second time that he has been in the playoffs. Could be wrong about that. But there just wasn't a lot of experience on this Bears roster. And so you saw a couple of, poor play calling in the beginning. That fourth down in the first quarter when you're on your own 32-yard line was awful from Ben Johnson. He can't do that moving forward. And then Caleb Williams having 2 interceptions early was obviously huge too. But if there's one thing about this Bears offense, is that they come alive, especially down the stretch of that game. Scoring 25 points within the fourth quarter, Caleb was electric. He got into a rhythm, and once he did, he just could not be stopped. And on the Packers, you have to be kicking yourself in the head right now, because Jordan Love scored 4 touchdowns. Like, he played phenomenal. And, again, speaking about, poor defenses, Chicago needs to clean theirs up as well. And I knew that the wide receiver room that Green Bay was going to present was going to be quite the challenge. And that was on full display as Dobbs, Golden, Reed, and Watson all scored a touchdown within that game. And Dobbs and Golden combined for over 200 yards in the passing game. But this offense can come alive. And that is why I'm so excited with this matchup between them and the Rams, because it is going to be a fire fest. It's going to be the same game that the Bears and the 49ers played a couple of weeks back when they scored 30-plus points against each other. It is going to be an offensive display of just brilliance, of greatness, and it's going to be 2 of the top offenses in the league going against each other. But the question is going to come down to who can get more stops. And it's tough to say, right? I would probably rely a little bit more on the Rams defense, just purely based off of the talent that they have. But at the same time, I think that Chicago's offense going against this Rams defense has more opportunity to be a lot more explosive and make much more explosive plays. So it's kind of a 50-50 apples and oranges when you look at it. Me personally, I'm going to edge towards the Rams within that matchup, because I believe that they're going to have much more experience going forward. But at home, Soldier Field for the Bears, coming off beating your division rival, has to be, has to push a lot of momentum within your favor. Don't be surprised if Chicago comes on top. And again, a lot of, big-time 50-50 matchups going forward. There were in the first round. There is going to be in the divisional. But this is another one of them. But don't be surprised if these Chicago Bears pull it out and have the potential to play an NFC championship game. Me personally, moving forward for either of these teams, I just don't think that they're consistently good on both sides of the ball. So I'm not sure how much they fare in getting across the finish line. But their offenses are legit, and they're ones that every single team needs to be wary and looking out for. Moving into the Sunday window, we had 3 different contests. First one was Bills-Jaguars, with the Bills ousting the Jaguars 27-24. What a game, especially down the stretch. Both offenses were just going blow for blow. They finally figured things out. You got to give a lot of credit to Trevor Lawrence and how he played to this season. I understand that he had 2 interceptions, but towards the end of the stretch for the final stretch of the season, he really showed his brilliance, and he really showed that he was coming on as a quarterback. Obviously, the 2 interceptions, he's going to kick himself in the head for that, but honestly, you can't complain with the way that Trevor Lawrence just absolutely came alive towards the end of the season. He's going to want to patch up some of these mistakes, but the future is looking bright in Jacksonville. But the Buffalo Bills were able to edge it out here by basically the will of Josh Allen. 28 for 35, 273 yards throughout the air, 1 touchdown, but then also was able to grab 2 touchdowns with his legs. He pulled this team across the finish line. He was doing everything that he could to allow them to win this game, and that's realistically how Buffalo is going to be able to win these playoff games. It is all going to be on Josh Allen, because we know that there's not a lot of help on this offensive end outside of, James Cook with the running game, which, by the way, the Jags offense showing why they were the number 1 rush defense, holding Cook under 50 yards. So if you go up against a top-notch defense, it is all going to come down to Allen and what he can realistically do. But I'm just worried about this offense moving forward with their lack of receiving options, the defense being able to give up some plays, 3 touchdowns throughout the air. Obviously, we know those safeties, 2 in the back, are not the same as they were a year ago. Buffalo, to me, with how battered they are, especially Josh at this point, he got hammered in that game. He got hit a bunch, was limping and whatnot. he had a lot of pressure in his face. I'm not sure, even if they are willing to go into Mile High Stadium and play the Broncos and beat them, can you do that again against, another stifling defense like Houston, if Houston beats New England, which we'll get to in a second? And then can you go out, and even if you win that game, can you go up against, a defense like Seattle potentially in the Super Bowl and beat them, especially with how limited your pass offense is in terms of receiving options? It's going to be really, really hard to see them host that Lombardi Trophy. I think if anybody could do it and will their team, it is Josh. But it is going to be really, really difficult to see how they end up doing that. And as far as their matchup against Denver, as worried as I am and as much as I didn't want to play the Bills, it's still a tailor-made matchup for Denver. Their corner should be able to shut down any receiver that comes their way. I am really, really concerned at what is going to happen in the trenches at the line of scrimmage, because Denver got really, really bullied at the line of scrimmage against the Bills last year when they faced each other in the playoffs. But this defense does have a little bit more in run support with Dre Greenlaw on the inside, Talno Hufanga coming over the edge. So they should be fine. The Denver Broncos should win this game at home in Mile High, having a one-day rest advantage over the Buffalo Bills, who are absolutely battered. But we have seen this offense struggle. They're missing J.K. Dobbins. They're missing their starting center. There are holes to this Denver Broncos team. Sean Payton's play calling hasn't necessarily, lived up to the hype at certain points within this season, and Broncos fans are hoping that he turns it on. For Denver, it's going to be about, can they score the ball? Can they go out and score the ball against the Bills? And if they can do that consistently, they don't need to do that every single drive, but if they can have success in each and every one of their drives, they should be able to win this. But again, if anybody is going to stop them with the experience that he has, especially playing against some of the top quarterbacks in this league, it is Josh Allen. So me personally, being biased, I'm going to favor my Denver Broncos. But again, if Buffalo comes on top in this, I wouldn't be surprised whatsoever. Moving on from there, we had the afternoon window with the 49ers beating the Philadelphia Eagles 23-19, sending the defending champs tumbling into the sunset. And man, I don't know how San Francisco continues to win games. I seriously, I don't understand it at all. They were missing Trent Williams. They were missing Ricky Pearsall. Obviously, they haven't had Brandon Ayuk for a long time. They lose George Kittle to an Achilles injury. Hope that Kittle is able to recover and that he's back. It's really, really difficult to see a Hall of Fame type of player of his caliber go down for that. But they just continue to win. And Kyle Shanahan has my vote for Coach of the Year at this point. I mean, what he's been able to do, willing this team, just giving them the confidence and the energy to go out there and, willing his way behind guys like Christian McCaffrey and whatnot, throwing in, different plays, like having Jawan Jennings throw for a touchdown, that was all brilliant. And, you go up against one of the top defenses in the league, one of the most consistent defenses in the league over the past couple of seasons, and you're able to outwill them. I mean, it's just tremendous. And then as for the Eagles, obviously breaking news this morning as they fired their OC, Kevin Patula, but I think that that's pretty warranted. Looking at how bad and just inconsistent they were this season. The run game wasn't hitting as it was. Saquon did have 100 yards within this game, but the running game as a whole wasn't clicking as much as it was last year. Hurts looked uncomfortable at times. There was just certain, miscommunications and whatnot going through here. I think that the offensive line is starting to slowly deteriorate. The Niners did a pretty solid job of being able to limit A.J. Brown and his production, especially on the outside. So that is all good to go. But this Niners team, man, I'm just asking, similar to Buffalo, how far can you really go with the injuries that you have? And I think, again, that is why these playoffs have been so interesting, is because when you look at, especially all the teams that are remaining, this final 8, all of them have weaknesses, major weaknesses and major holes, but they're still able to just win in 5 games. Like Denver has been in so many close contests this season, still finds a way to win games. The Bills have been so injured. The 49ers have been so injured, still find ways to play games. The Texans have been missing CJ Stroud for a couple of weeks this season, and started, the defense at least started the season a little bit slow, still find a way to win games. So the Bears and the Rams, lack of defense, still find a way to win games. Like, these are teams that have just willed their way rather than, realistically having the stereotypical talent to go out and win a Super Bowl. And so it's just so interesting to see all of them collide. But if there is a team that can take advantage of this Seahawks, of this lack of talent on the 49ers edge, it is the Seahawks. But, and again, there's always a but. How good will Sam Darnold look? And that is my big concern, and why I've had such a huge concern with Seattle over the course of this season is because as good as Sam Darnold has been playing, can he show up within clutch time? Can he realistically go out and play when the lights are the brightest? Yes, his defense is going to take care of business, and especially against a very, very injured 49ers offense, you're hoping that they can have an easy time. But can Sam turn the tables and score the ball? Or is he going to make big-time mistakes that allows San Francisco to walk themselves back into this game? That is going to be the big-time question. You have the weapons. You have the O-line. You have the stout head coach. You have the defense. Seattle, if we're being realistic, is the best team within these playoffs and has the best chance and the best path to go out and win. But can your quarterback show up when it means the most? Right now, I'd favor Seattle, especially at home. But will Sam Darnold show up? That is the big-time question. Right now, personally, I'm going to pick the Broncos. I'm going to pick the Seahawks. I'm going to pick the Rams. But again, if you see Bills, 49ers, and Bears all in that second round, and I'm sorry if I sound like a broken record, do not be surprised. And then the final game that will close it out, Sunday at 1 p.m., and this was the last two games that we saw for the playoffs. Texans versus Patriots, classic playoff matchup that has happened many times before. This one's going to be a doozy. It really is. It's really going to be an interesting game because despite the Texans winning 30-6 against the Steelers last night, I don't feel like that score realistically represents how that game went. They scored 23 points within the fourth quarter, mostly off the bat of turnovers and the Steelers just giving them way too many offensive opportunities. The defense is legit for Houston. I think they're the best defense right now. I take them over Seattle. I take them over Denver. The pressure that they were able to generate, their ability to just take away DK Metcalf within that second half was great. But the offense just looks so bad. And CJ Stroud, I've loved the way that he has played so far in his career, and he's had some ups and downs. But last night might be the worst that I have seen him play. He looked just so uncomfortable within that pocket, fumbling the ball off of snaps, not setting his feet for some throws, jumping in the air for certain throws, overthrows. He was just off his rocker last night. And, again, it's a game-to-game basis. And when you get to this point in the divisional round where there's really no excuse, this was the easiest game, the easiest opponent that Houston could have drawn in Pittsburgh because of their lack of offense. And, I'm not going to talk too much about Pittsburgh because I talked about it in the Mike Tomlin episode that should have came out earlier today. But this was Houston's game to lose, realistically. And the way that they did it, it dropped my stock on them a little bit because the defense is going to get work done. But again, the question is, can you score? Can you go into New England and win in a firefight? Because Drake May, despite him struggling a little bit against the Chargers early on, he threw that pick, and I was super, super impressed with how he came on in the end and was able to push through that. There is scoring potential within New England. They can, shown to be able to score the ball, but also put together, a very steady game plan with their running game, their 1-2 punch of Ramondre Stevenson and Travion Henderson. Kyle Williams has been a very, very electric receiver for them, especially throwing down the field. Can Houston match that? And on the other side for the Patriots, as solid as their offense may be, can their defense, potentially prevail a little bit? Because it was shaky at times for the Chargers. They did give up some yards, although they put a lot of pressure in Justin Herbert's face for an offensive line that was very, very damaged. Can New England's offensive line take advantage of the weakness that is the interior of the Houston Texans offensive line? That is going to be very interesting to see as well. So, going back to the start of this, and the basis is, I think that there are just so many question marks with all of these games moving forward. There's so many weaknesses to a lot of these teams, and that's what makes this just so fun and interesting to see. But again, the question is, who could realistically make it? Of the 8 teams remaining, I think the Broncos, the Seahawks, the Patriots, and the Rams are probably the most realistic to go. Denver As shaky as their offense has been, they have the best home field advantage in the league. And all they need is for their offense to be average, which is saying a lot. They also have realistically a pretty easy path with facing against Buffalo. Seattle, again, they just need Sam Darnold to play average because everything around him is so good. The Pats, they're fine. They look like probably the most steady AFC team in this round. And then the Rams, just basically per off of experience, there's nobody that could beat them. The Bears, I don't like their defense. The Texans, the Stroud's stock has dropped so low for me after last night's game. The Bills, they're just too haggard, and the 49ers, same thing. Like, there's just too many injuries. Like, those are the groups that I would separate in just based off of the weaknesses. But again, like, what's so interesting, and I hate to sound like a broken record and saying this a million times because I hate repeating myself, but, like, you could swap those groups. You like there's, like, I'm picking Broncos, Seahawks, Patriots, Rams, but there is a world where it is Bills versus Texans, 49ers versus Bears in the conference championships, which is what makes this so much fun. So let me know what you think about all of that down below. What do you think about what I said, the matchups that I have going forward, and the teams that I believe could make it all the way through? Let me know about all of that down below in the comments section, as well as subscribing to the channel, leaving a like on the video, and sharing it with your friends. And if you haven't already, go ahead and follow us on all social medias, TikTok, Instagram, and Twitter. We're on all of those social medias. You'll get to see my latest reactions to breaking news within the NBA, the NFL, and combat sports. And you will never miss for whenever the podcast decides to upload an episode. Without further ado, guys, that's all that I have for you guys today. I will see you guys on the next one. Continue to have a great rest of your week, and peace.